So for those of you who are just joining us for the first time, we like to start with a little introduction of who we are. My name is Angela Priest. I'm the COO of Alma Me. I have been in industry for over 20 years, and I've been a hiring manager for 20 years. I have helped build hiring teams. I've helped build hiring processes. I've mentored hiring managers. I've been a hiring manager myself. I partnered with Elena last year, who is our CEO, to form Alma Me. She's a PhD who has her PhD in skin immunology from Karolinska Institute in Sweden. And we decided last year, after we saw kind of a challenge that PhDs were running into, to form Alma Me. And Alma Me is all about helping PhDs make the transition from academia into industry positions with confidence. We know there's a lot of information out there. It can be hard to digest and figure out what the right information is. Making a career transition like this can be really scary, and it can be filled with anxiety. And, when you're putting out hundreds of applications and getting no response, it can also lead to some self-doubt. And what we find in the folks that we work with is a lot of times it's just an issue of positioning, and it's just a matter of really understanding what goes on behind closed doors so that you can more effectively find your way into industry positions. So what we do is we equip you with skills, resources, and networking opportunities to help you not only identify your ideal career in industry, but also to actually help you land an industry job. So today's, so let's kind of, so I'm just going to share my screen here. So today's topic is really to help you understand the vast number of roles that are available to you as PhDs. One of the things that we hear quite frequently from PhDs who are looking for positions in industry is like, I just don't know where to start. I don't know where my PhD would have value. And some of that just comes from a lack of understanding of business structures and all of the many ways that a PhD can be used. So we're going to go over some of those today. So when you think about the business community, it's easy to assume that the only roles that you can apply for as a PhD are science and researcher roles. And the reality is that when you think about business is really all about experimentation. You can go into really any part of a business and find that there's some type of knowledge build, exploration, research, or experimentation going on. But the types of dispositions of those people in those roles may differ from role to role. So what I wanted to really introduce you all to today was kind of the different types of roles that exist in businesses and how your PhD skill sets can really apply, but also depending on your unique kind of personality traits and characteristics, what are the types of roles that actually might appeal to you where you'll be a really strong contender for those roles? So, and I want to preface this all with all businesses, no matter kind of where you go, they'll all have different flavors of different things. So no two companies are made alike, but there are some general themes that you can think about as you're thinking about like what types of roles might be suitable, not only for my skill set, but for what I want to do. So let's start at kind of the sales and marketing sides of businesses. So this might be a role that many PhDs might not ever even think about or consider in their job search. But sales and marketing roles are one of the most valuable roles in the company. Obviously, that's where the money comes from. That money comes in and is there to basically fund all of the other areas of the business. And so when you think about sales and marketing roles, what the primary objective of those roles really is to understand and create a story and a narrative for customers that draws customers towards the business and makes those customers want to buy. And there's different types of businesses that you can kind of be trying to figure out the customer side of things for. Some companies are what we call B2B or business to business. It means their customers are other businesses. Other customers are B2C companies, which means business to consumer, which means they're selling directly to their end users or end customers. But regardless, you're always dealing with people. And so, if you are somebody who really enjoys kind of being around people, communicating, storytelling, kind of influencing people and understanding how certain ways that you interact with them can actually lead them to behave in certain ways, sales and marketing can be a really, really good option for you, particularly in the context of your subject matter expertise that you've gotten from your degrees. So even scientific companies, even pharmaceutical companies, they need people, salespeople who can come in and speak the language on their subject matter and help their customers understand their subject matter. So usually in sales and marketing roles, you're going to find people who are like really personable. These are the people who are complete extroverts. They are driven by kind of this thrill of the pitch and the hunt and kind of overcoming challenges and objections. These are people who don't take no for an answer. So if you're somebody who, no matter what, you're just like, I can get a yes out of this situation. And you can think about that not only in your academic side, but in your personal life. Are you the type of person who tries to convince people to do things? That's what sales and marketing does. And they do it a lot of the time through storytelling and through connection and building relationships. So those are some of the things that you can consider in sales roles. But how your PhD specifically can be really a strong contributor to success in these roles is that sales and marketing roles require a huge degree of research. You have to understand the market. You have to understand consumers within the market, how they behave, how you can segment them into different buying groups, how they're going to be more or less driven towards your competitors or towards your products, what really makes them tick and drives them. So research skills are huge in these roles. And they also, because of that storytelling, your ability to present a compelling narrative, not only about your product, but the reasons why the customers should believe in your products, reasons why they should buy. So we talk about something in industry called RTBs. Those are reasons to believe. So you need to be able to tell a story with supporting evidence around why that product is going to help a consumer or a customer solve their problem. And that's all of those things are involved in the sales pitch. So when you think about how your PhD skills translate, those presentation skills and that ability to tell a narrative with supporting evidence to convince somebody to do something, that's huge. And then on the analytical side, oftentimes the data behind sales and marketing success can be very, very complex and difficult to interpret because you're dealing with consumer and human behavior and things like that. And so your ability to kind of break down complex data and make inferences from it to drive, which customers you target or which markets you might go into and the associated risks with those can be wildly valuable. Now, one thing that I do want to emphasize here is that business decisions occur in shades of gray. So there's not a black and white decision. Oftentimes, decisions you're making are based on data and information that only gives you a marginally better likelihood of success than chance. And so, one of the things that I encourage PhDs to do when they look at these types of roles is to say, you know what, there are shades of gray. I need to get, I need to help the decisions be good enough that we have a reasonable likelihood of success. And sometimes those decisions are going to lead to failure, and that's okay. Businesses tend to move on from those, and it's not a big deal. But you have to have the ability to kind of break down that complex data, but also think about it in terms of how can I help this decision be good enough? The next type of role that PhDs can be valuable in is in product development, and you'll hear this referred to in a lot of different ways within the industry, and it can have a lot of different flavors for how it works in different companies, just because every product is different. So when you think about product development, you can think of it in turn. Sometimes it'll be called a product role. Sometimes it will be called an innovation role. Sometimes it will be called R&D. Those are all different flavors of this product development kind of group within a company. And you can fulfill different roles. So there's roles within there that kind of resemble project management, but it's got this product related flair onto it. So how do you manage the structural life cycle of a product? There are definitely R&D roles. These are tend to be the areas of business where you're actually going to see titles like scientist or researcher, things like that. But where the skill sets come to play is these are very, very deep in problem solving. So problem solving is really important. This is also where domain or technical expertise, so subject matter expertise, can really come into play here. And then your ability to kind of work through problem solving in a very methodical approach can be wildly valuable here. And so when you see companies that have the kind of most well-recognized innovation approaches, you'll actually see that it's not just kind of all over the place in this big like creative thing. There's actually a process and a procedure that they follow. And if they're not, when they kind of scale to the point where that methodical approach is important, they actually need people who can identify kind of what is that method that they were using to get that result, so that they can bake it in and just run that playbook over and over and over on new inventions. So what makes people really valuable in these roles are people who are really curious, who have the ability to think outside of the box, think in new and different ways, who tend to have a high level of resilience and tolerance for ambiguity. But these are all people who are just really motivated by learning, which, I don't think there's anything more true of PhDs than people who are motivated by learning. And so here it's really about kind of having that innovative mindset and that innovation and creativity that you've developed throughout the course of your PhD program. In some cases, it could be about that deep subject matter expertise that you've developed around kind of new or existing ways of doing things. So it's not just kind of the technical part, it's also the knowledge that you've developed through, your literature reviews and the writing and the conferences and all of that. That's a wildly valuable knowledge base that you bring to the table. And then also, again, it's the problem solving skills. It's your ability to really tackle these complex problems and break them down into simpler solutions that can be sold in a market context. The other roles that or the other kind of functions that PhDs can be really valuable in are technology. And sometimes the technology and the product kind of functions actually are part of the same function. So depending on what type of company, those two roles or those two functional areas might be combined. But these are a lot of kind of the back end technical skills. So this is like the programming, your data analysis, your ability to think analytically and systematically, but also that continuous learning so that you're keeping pace with how quickly those fields tend to evolve. But these roles tend to also involve a high level of detail orientation. And the environments tend to be a lot more structured, but they tend to also be very agile because they have to be able to adapt to rapid evolution within the space. So good example of that is the introduction of ChatGPT last year, when you saw this huge kind of groundbreaking technology become democratized in a way that everybody could access it. People in the fields of technology had to rapidly evolve their thinking to figure out how do we incorporate that and get in on that trend. But when you think about it from kind of what motivates you, you really want to be a person that is just a builder. You like to get hands-on, you like to build things, you like that space in coding. So those are all things that might be related to your interest. Um, when it comes to how your PhD can be valuable, a lot of you have experience in data analysis, various technical applications, various softwares and things like that. So that tends to be kind of a more tangible skill set that you can bring to the table, but also the ability to kind of manage technology products or projects. So kind of thinking about the inception of what you're doing, really understanding what that problem is that you're trying to solve and figuring out how to solve it in the most efficient and effective way possible. That involves a lot of research typically. And then just critical thinking. So it's not just about coming up with a solution, but it's also thinking about, is this viable from a business perspective? Like, does this have legs? Will our customers like it? Does it actually solve the problem that we're trying to solve? And all of those things can really contribute to that technology operational side. Then there's the business operations side. Business operations can really take a lot of different forms in different organizations. But in general, you'll see finance, you'll see human resources, you'll see business intelligence here in these types of roles. Oftentimes, these people in these roles tend to be highly structured in the way that they're working. It tends to be very, very methodical and very analytical across all of those positions. And really what these roles do is they actually help the company continue to move and operate smoothly. So you might do things like root cause analysis. You might do things like, strategy design. You might do things like an analysis of key markets or things like that. But your ability to really kind of combine organizational skills and your methodical approach can be very, very valuable here. And so when you think about the analytical abilities that you gain during your PhD can be applied, it can be applied in a variety of ways. So you can use it for financial planning and analysis to really understand what are the drivers of the financial success of the business and what are some of where are the best places to make investments to get a strong return on those investments in terms of business performance. Or you could use it to help optimize business processes. How can we understand the flow of work through the business and how we can become more productive and efficient in doing that so that we become more profitable and have more money to invest in different new and innovative things? Or on the HR side, how do we attract and retain the best talent in our compensation packages really appealing to the market and staying aligned and doing analysis and benchmarking around salary bands and things like that to make sure you're having fair compensation or that you're searching for talent in the right pools. And those types of things can really get used into strategic planning. So when you think about the research that you've done in your PhD programs, a lot of what you've done has been about really understanding patterns and the causal effect links between different outcomes. And so when you think about strategic planning, that can really be used to help businesses understand where they place their bets. And so that tool that pattern recognition can be huge there. And then obviously the attention to detail. Just, when you need to really carefully manage and keep track of things within a business, having a high attention to detail can be super beneficial. And then the last area is, and certainly not the least area that I would call attention to, is customer success. So once you have a product, you have to have a way of delivering it in a way that creates a good customer experience. And so when you think about customer success teams, they kind of combine that operational bent with the customer facing kind of sales type of roles. So these really involve having some really great communication skills and relationship building skills. It requires high empathy and a desire to really help people solve a problem. But it also requires that drive to really help people solve their problems, because oftentimes in customer success roles, you're met with some of the most challenging problems in the business, which kind of center around, how well you can deliver to the client's expectations. And so how you can add value in these roles as a PhD is your communication skills. So your ability to convey information really effectively based on the situation on the ground and what's happening, and also and combining that with a level of empathy and understanding from a client perspective that is going to keep them motivated and engaged with your product. And then that ability to solve problems. And in this context, that ability to kind of really dig down and see what the root cause is so that you can solve a customer issue quickly and provide solutions that will really help them have a better experience can be hugely valuable. So again, when you look across all of these positions, there's a few key things that, really come through from your PhD. It's your ability to solve problems creatively, your ability to communicate and present and convey ideas, your attention to detail and your meticulousness in solving problems. All of those can be really, really valuable in establishing your value for these different types of industry positions. So with that, thank you all for kind of listening to that diatribe. So